I'm now the chairman of Revolt with a pathway. You see, because he wants to trigger me, and I want you to acknowledge that. So I'm now Cam's boss.
But y'all know I got 3 bricks in the car, but I'll wear it. Cam started crying,
So
man.
let me say it. Tomorrow, I'm dropping a diss record for 50.
Dame Dash stormed into the Breakfast Club and shook the room with a wild claim. He said he's the new chairman of Revolt, fired shots at Cam'ron, and even promised a diss record. Minutes later, on Art of Dialogue, Dame doubled down with a story that cuts deep. A night linked to Big L and a car packed with mystery cargo. Whether you believe him or not, Dame just flipped the timeline upside down. Revolt, Harlem loyalty, and an empire mindset. He's painting himself like the godfather of the culture. Tonight, we're connecting every claim and every clapback. Dame's bankruptcies, his chess-like moves, Cam's counters with Mace, and the truth behind who really calls the shots. The next 5 minutes might seriously change the way you see all 3 of them. But let's rewind to what sparked it all. Just a week before Dame's interview, 50 Cent dropped a bomb of his own, saying he bought the rights to Paid in Full and was turning it into a series with Cam'ron on board as executive producer. That announcement raced across hip-hop media like wildfire. To Dame, it felt like history being stolen. A Harlem classic he helped shape, now being retold by his rivals. The message? If 50 really controls the story, Dame gets erased from his own legacy. But Dame isn't letting that fly. He insists there are no rights to buy, because the story he lived can't be locked up in anyone's catalog like it's sitting on a store shelf. And before the paperwork even hits the table, Dame drags the beef into family territory, claiming Cam's people even tried to bring his son into the mix. That's no longer just business, that's blood. And in Harlem politics, when family gets pulled in, small disputes can explode into generational wars. Dame's point isn't just wordplay, it's power moves. If nobody can actually package and sell a clean, official, paid in full story, then 50's announcement is more promo than a signed deal. Dame flips the spotlight and asks the hard questions. Who exactly could 50 have bought it from? And where's the industry notice? In Hollywood, if a deal is real, Deadline breaks it before Instagram throws the confetti. But this time, the headlines were blasting without the paperwork to back them up. Here's the quick paper trail. On September 9th, 2025, Revolt's site claimed 50 now owns the Paid in Full rights and is producing a TV series with Cam as executive producer. The very next day, iHeart's Breakfast Club blog echoed the same thing while also noting Dame's sarcastic new boss jab. Were those posts premature? Maybe, maybe not. But perception became the real battlefield. Once fans believe a crown has changed hands, it's almost as good as gone, unless you can snatch the story back with receipts. That's Dame's gamble. If the deal is real, there has to be paper. If there's no paper, then 50 and Cam are just selling smoke. And that's why the first chapter of this feud isn't about who's tougher. It's about who can claim ownership the loudest in the biggest room. Dame frames it as sovereignty, not spite. If Cam signed on to take orders from someone else, Dame fires back saying no one can own what they never created in the first place. It's a simple line, but it hits heavy in Harlem and online. The hustler refusing to be written out of his own script. And Dame doesn't stop there. He pushes the narrative straight into Cam's house, saying if Cam teamed up with 50 for the series, then the tables flip both on TV and in real life. The flex? Brutal in its simplicity. Dame claims a higher seat than Cam, and he doubles down later, announcing his own show, Bosses Take Losses, on Revolt. Then he teases the ultimate move, not just playing the game, but owning the platform that beams the message. Oh, and using it to crown himself. Sounds airtight until you actually check the press, and that's where things split right down the middle. Billboard reported that Vibe confirmed Dame as interim chairman, and while Vibe's own write-up leaned heavy into the announcement, but at the exact same time, All Hip Hop ran the CEO's denial. Then OK Player and Hot New Hip Hop cited co-host Lauren L.A. saying Revolt's PR team debunked it. By this point, aggregation sites were straight up asking the question, is he or isn't he? Even Soap Central stepped in, summarizing the CEO's clarification. So what do we do with all that noise? For our purposes, we treat it the same way the streets do. It's all about claims, counterclaims, and who flashes real paperwork first. Dame insists he's got receipts and even posted text messages hinting at a pathway to take the role. But let's be real, a pathway isn't the same thing as a signed deal. Our job isn't to pick sides, it's to put the receipts on the screen and see who blinks first. Because here's the reality, if Dame is right, then Cam just woke up with a brand new boss. But if Dame is wrong, then he basically just tried to big brother a Harlem legend with a mic check that won't cash. Bookmark this moment because it shapes everything that follows. The words Dame keeps using: chairman, acquisition, pathway, either become the trailer for a redemption arc or the setup for a spectacular walkback. And from here, things heat up quick. Next, we go to the night that shifted this story from corporate boardrooms to street-level tension, the infamous traffic stop with Big L in the car. Dame says it was him, a young Cameron, and Big L driving uptown when he accidentally rolled into a checkpoint without a license. Back then, he says sometimes you walked away, sometimes you got cuffed, but what really mattered was how you carried it. Dame's version is simple. He kept his cool, said he'd handle whatever came, and looked around to see who could really handle pressure and who couldn't. That's why this next part stings different, because when Dame tells the car story, he isn't just flexing about how tough he was, he's measuring Cam. The message he pushes is that real Harlem stripes aren't earned in studios or on TV screens. They're minted in those pressure cooker moments where the wrong word could bring the law down on everybody. And if you believe Dame's account, the second he mentioned what was inside that car, Cam cracked. In Harlem politics, that's not just a random story, that's a character reference. Dame had already cast the roles, Cam as Fredo, not Michael, the brother who loves the perks of power but can't handle the true moment of pressure. Dame even took it further, calling him Cameo and laying out a Godfather-style analogy beat for beat. Power looks patient until it moves, and when it moves, it strikes all at once. That's not just random trash talk, that's motive. He's giving you a lens to interpret everything that comes next. And then came the part that froze the internet. Dame's delivery slowed for just a second, like he was picking the sharpest word possible, and then he dropped the haymaker, Cam cried. Whether you see that as teenage panic or a permanent mark depends on how you grade Harlem legends. But Dame's goal is clear. He wants the audience to equate composure with kingship and emotion with exile. Now let's be real, even if Cam really did break down in that moment, it doesn't erase decades of music, hustle, and influence. But in Harlem storytelling, one single detail can follow you for life. A tear in the wrong moment becomes a stamp that brands your legacy. And don't forget the setup to that punch. Dame made it clear he never hustled with Cam, and even questioned whether Cam ever really put in that type of work on a Harlem block. Then he framed the car night as Exhibit A, stacking character evidence instead of just telling a wild story. If Cam and Mace want to tear it down, they can't just laugh at the revolt talk. They've got to crack this memory wide open. That means challenging the details, the date, the location, even who was really in that car, because as long as Dame's story stands, he's got a street exhibit to go with his boardroom boasts. Put together the checkpoint, the 3 bricks, and the tier line. And Dame has a clean through line. I stayed solid when it counted, and that's why I never hustled with Cam. He isn't asking for fans to like him. He's asking you to grade resumes by the ugliest moments, not the brightest lights. And if you buy into that grading scale, his Harlem scorecard makes sense. The pressure then shifts back to Cam and Mace. Either flip the scale or flip the story. And here's where Dame's Godfather obsession comes in again. Not just as a metaphor, but as his actual operating manual. He says he studies it, lives by it, and even quotes the exact sequence. Play weak, absorb the insults, then push a button and strike 5 families in a single day. It sounds theatrical, sure, but it's also his reasoning for why he showed up in patched up clothes, a loose shirt, and threw bait into the room. He wanted the hosts and the internet to underestimate him, so when he dropped his reveals, they hit harder. But listen closely. It's more than cosplay. Dame is mapping real moves to movie scenes. His chairman claim, premiere edited cuts from his docuseries, teasing a diss track, and funneling content to a platform he says he's acquiring. Every piece is part of a bigger play designed to make him look inevitable. That's why he keeps repeating, trades tomorrow, 25 episodes, bosses take losses next week. At this point, it's less about debate and more about momentum. Keep feeding the timeline with set pieces until the audience treats the ending as a foregone conclusion. But here's the twist in this whole script. Michael Corleone didn't just posture, he closed loops. And if Dame is really running the Corleone play, the pressure's on him to back it with receipts, contracts, programming schedules, real air dates. Because once your rivals start mocking the paperwork, that Godfather aura doesn't hold unless there's something concrete behind it. That's why Cam and Mace's strongest counter won't be a joke, where it'll be a calendar. If they can pull out a date-stamped contradiction, Dame's so-called pathway to acquire goes from a power move to a punchline. And in Harlem, you only get to call yourself boss if the credits roll your way. So chapter 4 plants a flag. Dame is laying out the rules of the movie he thinks he's living in. Either he really executes the 5 families montage, programming live on Revolt, a diss record out, paid in full episodes actually airing, or Cam and Maze flip the script on him and use his own metaphor against him. Harlem is watching closely to see who walks away from this table smiling. But there's one more thing about the movie Dame keeps quoting. In his telling, real power is measured by what you don't owe. He repeats it again and again. No debt, family office, do it with your own money. That's the backbone of his Godfather talk. Because if you owe nobody, then nobody can make you bow. Tie that doctrine to a media platform and you've got his thesis in one sentence. Control the channel, control the myth. So when Dame christens Cam as Fredo, it's not just clowning. It's a warning. In the film, Fredo's undoing wasn't simply weakness. It was mistaking proximity for real power. And Dame is daring Cam and Maze to prove they're Michael, to build something they actually own, not something borrowed. Because if the next chapter shows Dame's show actually airing on Revolt the way he says it will, while Cam and Maze are only dropping reaction clips, then Dame's metaphor sticks. And so does the stain. And here's where Dame doesn't dodge the numbers. He drags them right onto the table. A decade filled with lawsuits, liens, and a tax bill big enough to sink most people. But Dame doesn't frame it as a confession. He frames it as a reset button. His message? You can't dig a $20 million hole out of the ground by clocking in at a 9 to 5. In his telling, the move wasn't about optics, it was about oxygen. If every business launch gets hit with muddy waters and legal letters, the only way forward is to pause the courtroom game and reallocate energy back into building. Listen to his logic and you'll hear a street cadence applied to corporate weather. Investors hate smoke, lawsuits create smoke, and smoke kills deals even when the cases don't stick. Dame says one determined person could file in courts across the country just to tie him up, forcing him to spend 6 figures just swatting flies. And whether he won or lost, the filings alone drained the clock and the cash. Bankruptcy, in his argument, clears the slate from those tactics, so real business plans can breathe again. Whether you see that as smart strategy or just spin depends on how you view bankruptcy itself. Is it taboo? Or is it a tool? And notice the tone shift here. The Breakfast Club clash was theater, but this part, this is arithmetic. Same Dame, but with a different mic. Fewer interruptions, more explanations, and in doing so, he taps the oldest fault line in hip-hop business debates, pride versus paper. Does it sting to say bankruptcy out loud? Maybe, but does it restore optionality when lawyers turn your calendar into a cost center? That's the argument Dame is pushing, and because Harlem is watching, he frames it as a wager. Judge me on execution after the filing, not ego before it. If the next scenes show budgets, episodes, and distribution instead of docket numbers, then this move flips from scandal into blueprint. Now Dame shifts from survival to straight doctrine. His creed is sharp and deliberately provocative. If a billionaire holds a massive loan and he holds none, then in his eyes, he's actually richer. To corporate ears, that sounds backwards, because in their world, leverage is a growth tool, not a scarlet letter. But to Dame, loans are leashes. Whoever funds you can yank the chain, and whoever can yank you can make you bow. His antidote, autonomy. And autonomy costs cash. This is where the Revolt talk ties directly into the bankruptcy reset. Dame's pathway to acquire isn't just a humble brag, it's the centerpiece. Own the pipeline and you don't have to beg for slots. Build the show yourself and you don't have to ask for a look. In his playbook, it's family office over labels, your masters instead of someone else's catalog. Sure, it's romantic, and yes, it's risky, but every time Dame repeats his line about debt, he's drawing a border around his whole identity. Better to fly smaller with no strings than to balloon up on borrowed helium. But here's the rub Dame never fully concedes, and it's exactly where Cam and Maze plant their flag: scale. Because if independents can't match what a full network machine does for distribution, then Dame's philosophy only wins if his content massively overperforms. And that's why he keeps promising drops, documentaries, episodes, all tied to a platform he claims he's locked in with. If those projects actually land on schedule, then his no debt gospel stops sounding like a sermon and starts reading like receipts. But if they don't, that same doctrine flips into a very loud vow, one his rivals will throw back in his face every single time they trend. And Dame's too seasoned to leave that vacuum hanging. He previews a diss track, then actually tees it up right in the room. A record swinging at both 50 and Cam, it's spectacle. Part trolling, part time capsule, part warning shot. And the message behind the music is bigger than the bars. I'm not debating you, I'm narrating you. Then he takes it one level louder, framing it like a station ID. He introduces the artist, names the track, and plants it in people's heads as the last thing they hear before the show bumps. They poke holes in Dame's chairman claim, clown the wording, and dare him to put signatures where his sound bites are. As long as the paperwork feels fuzzy, their job stays easy. Keep it funny, keep it fast, and let the comment sections carry the narrative. Dame's counter: drown the jokes with deliverables, air dates, pilots, a whole slate, because whoever drops the first indisputable receipt wins this round by default. Cam with ownership paperwork, or Dame with programming actually on air. And that circles us right back to the car. The image Dame wants front and center. If the Big L night happened the way he tells it, then his whole argument is this: character under pressure predicts staying power in business. Cry in the car, fold in the deal. Keep your chin up in the sirens, keep your head up in the storm. It's ruthless logic. And now this beef is testing that logic live in public. Over the next few weeks, Harlem will treat the internet like that checkpoint. Who blinks first? Who looks away? Who keeps both hands steady on the wheel? Harlem doesn't hand out crowns. It snatches them. Dame says there were 3 bricks and no tears. Cam fires back: he's not the boss of me. A network is either yours or it isn't. A legend is either earned or it's edited. When the next episode hits, only 2 outcomes are possible. Either Dame drops the paperwork and walks into the room he promised, or Cam and Mace push him back out and lock the door behind him. Either way, somebody's story is about to get rewritten. And in this city, those edits are permanent. And that's the question left on the table. Who's really the boss when the smoke clears? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe to the channel for more breakdowns just like this.